Greetings everyone, we're gathered here to figure out WTF was, is, or will be. Tiger II, let's dive in. The Tiger II was a heavy tank developed by Germany during World War II. Officially, it was called Panzerkampfwagen Tiger B, though it was commonly referred to as Tiger B. Ordnance Inventory labeled it as SDKFC 182, and specialized command versions were designated as SDKFC 267 and 268. Among the Germans, it was often called the Königstiger, meaning King Tiger, while Allied forces usually referred to it as the King Tiger or Royal Tiger. Following its predecessor, the Tiger I, Tiger II improved on its design by blending the thick armor of the earlier model with the sloped armor style used on the Panther tank. At nearly 70 tons, the Tiger II was the heaviest tank the Germans ever made and the most expensive to produce. Its front armor ranged from nearly 4 inches to over 7 inches thick, providing substantial protection. Armed with an 8.8 centimeter KBK-43 anti-tank gun, the Tiger II packed a serious punch. Its chassis even served as the foundation for another vehicle, Jagdtiger, turretless anti-tank destroyer. The Tiger II was distributed to elite heavy tank battalions within both the German Army and the Waffen-SS. It first saw action with the 503rd Heavy Panzer Battalion during the Allied invasion of Normandy on July 11, 1944. On the Eastern Front, the 501st Heavy Panzer Battalion became the first unit to field the Tiger II. However, despite its power, production was limited. Due to relentless Allied bombing campaigns, only 492 of these tanks were built. Development. The development of the Tiger II began in 1937 when Henschel was awarded the initial design contract. 2 years later, in 1939, Porsche also received a design contract. While both prototypes featured a turret design from Krupp, they differed significantly in other areas, such as the hull, transmission, and suspension. Henschel's version had a more traditional hull design, similar to the Panther tank, with sloped armor for better protection. It featured a rear-mounted engine and used 9 large steel road wheels per side, designed to overlap but not interlock, making it easier to maintain than earlier models. These road wheels were mounted on torsion bars, a feature also found in the Tiger I. In contrast, Porsche version had a more unconventional approach, including a rear-mounted turret and a mid-engine layout. The suspension was borrowed from the Elephant tank destroyer and used a paired bogie system with 6 road wheels on each side. This setup saved internal space and made repairs more manageable. One of Porsche's more radical ideas was a gasoline-electric hybrid drive system. Instead of using a storage battery, each side of the tank had its own drivetrain powered by a gasoline engine, an electric generator, and an electric motor. Although this propulsion method had been tested on the failed Tiger B model, never gained much traction. Few of the hybrid components were later used in the Jagdtiger tank destroyer. Another idea, which also didn't make it past the drawing board, was to use hydraulic drives. Porsche's innovative designs, while interesting, ultimately didn't win much favor with the German military. Design. When it came to design, Henschel ultimately secured the contract for the Tiger II, and all models were produced by the company. Interestingly, 2 turret designs were created for this tank. The first turret, often wrongly referred to as the Porsche turret, was actually designed by Krupp for both prototypes. This version had a curved front and steeply sloped sides, but was more complex to manufacture due to a curved bulge on the left side to fit the commander's cupola. 50 of these early turrets were mounted on Henschel hulls and saw combat. By December 1943, the turret design was simplified, with a flat front that was much easier to produce. This also eliminated a weak spot created by the earlier curved face. The new design had straighter sides and provided more room inside for ammunition. The new turret design, often mistakenly called the Henschel turret, was meant to house the powerful 8.8 centimeter KBK-43 L71 gun. When combined with the German Turmzielfernrohr 9D sight, this weapon proved incredibly accurate. During training, gunners could consistently hit targets up to 2,000 yards away, with a nearly perfect hit rate at closer ranges. In combat, the performance was still impressive, though slightly lower. The tank could penetrate armor as thick as 5 inches at distances of around 2,200 yards. The turret's rotation system was powered by a hydraulic motor that used energy from the main engine. Gunners could control the turret's movement using foot pedals, and there were different speed settings for more precise aiming. At low speeds, the turret could rotate 360 degrees in about a minute, but at high speeds it could make the same turn much faster. If the engine wasn't running, the crew could still rotate the turret by hand, although it was a slow process. Cranking the turret manually required 40 full turns to rotate it just 20 degrees. At the rear of the Tiger II, you'd find dual exhausts, which were part of the petrol engine system. Like many other German tanks, it used a V12 Maybach HL 230P30 engine, which also powered the Panther and Tiger I tanks. Despite the engine's power, the Tiger II was often considered underpowered for its size and had an enormous fuel consumption, challenge for Germany given fuel shortages. The tank had an 8-speed transmission, also from Maybach, but it proved prone to failure. The suspension system relied on torsion bars and was mounted on 9 axles per side. Large, overlapping road wheels with rubber cushions helped distribute the tank's weight across the tracks. Late versions of the Tiger I also used the same wheels, one of the few interchangeable parts between the two tanks. Each Tiger II came with 2 sets of tracks, a wider battle track, combat, and a narrower version for transportation by rail. These narrower tracks made the tank easier to transport. Once unloaded, crew had to switch back to the wider tracks for battle. Command variant. The command version of the Tiger II was known as the Panzerbefehlswagen Tiger B. There were 2 main variants of this model, the SDKF-77 and SDKF-68. These command tanks had reduced ammunition capacity, carrying only 63 rounds for the 8.8 cm gun, in order to make room for additional radios and other necessary equipment. To enhance its capabilities in the field, the command variant also featured extra armor on the engine compartment. The SKF-267 version was equipped with 2 main radio systems, FUG-8 and FUG-5. On the outside, the most visible changes included a 6.6-foot rod antenna mounted on the turret roof and a star antenna D, which was installed on an insulated base and protected by a large armored cylinder. This setup was located on the rear deck, an area that had previously been used for deep weighting equipment. The SDKF-268 variant, on the other hand, came with a different radio setup, using FUG-7 and FUG-5 radios. Externally, it featured a 6.6-foot rod antenna on the turret roof and a shorter 4.6-foot antenna mounted on the rear deck, distinguishing it from the 267 model. Production. The Tiger II was developed late in World War II, and as a result was produced in limited numbers. Initially, there were plans to manufacture 1,500 Tiger II tanks, which was just a bit more than the 1,347 Tiger I tanks that had been built. However, the production process was severely impacted by continuous Allied bombing raids. For example, 5 significant bombings between September 22 and October 7, 1944, destroyed nearly 95% of the Henschel factory floor, causing an estimated loss of 657 Tiger II tanks in production. In total, only 492 Tiger II tanks were completed. The first was made in 1943, followed by 3 in 79 in 1944, and just 112 more in 1945 as the war neared its end. Full-scale production ran from the middle of 1944 until the end of the war. Each Tiger II came with a hefty price tag of 321,500 Reichsmarks, making it the most expensive German tank produced during the war. The Tiger II chassis also served as the foundation for one key variant, the Jagdtiger, a turretless tank destroyer. Additionally, there were plans for a self-propelled gun platform known as the Grill, intended to mount heavy guns in versions labeled 17, 21, 30, and 42. However, these designs never moved into production. Proposed upgrades. Several upgrades were proposed for the Tiger II during its production, starting with the Maybach HL234 engine. This engine was developed from the HL230. Plans to convert it to fuel injection, increasing its output from 700 horsepower to at least 800. In January 1945, the Panzer Development Commission unanimously agreed that the HL234 should be included in the engine design and procurement process. Another potential upgrade was the ZF AK-7 200 gearbox. considered as a replacement for the Maybach Ulvar B semi-automatic gearbox. However, testing by the Waffenamt's research and development team found that the ZF gearbox had poor driving performance, so the Maybach gearbox was retained. There was also an effort to explore a new diesel engine, the Simmering Grasshopper 16-cylinder engine. However, due to material shortages and the approaching end of the war, this program was cancelled before it could be implemented. Another idea came from Krupp, who suggested upgrading the main armament to a 10.5cm KWK L68 cannon. Unfortunately, this proposal didn't gain much traction because the German army had not accepted the new weapon. Other proposed improvements included stabilized sights, stabilized main gun, an automatic ammunition feed, a Carl Zeiss stereoscopic rangefinder, and additional features like a heated crew compartment, extra ammunition storage for 12 more rounds, and an air filtration system to protect against poison gas. However, none of these upgrades were implemented before the war came to an end, and they remained in the proposal stage. Specifications. The Tiger II had some impressive specifications that made it a formidable tank on the battlefield. It used the Maybach Ulvar OG4012-16 gearbox, which provided 8 forward gears and 4 reverse. The radio setup varied depending on the model, with the standard Tiger II equipped with the FUG-5, while the command version, Befehlswagen, had additional radio systems, including the FUG-8 for the KF-267 variant and the FUG-7 for the CIS-268. In terms of ammunition, the early versions of the Tiger II could carry 80 rounds for the 8.8cm gun, while the later production models were capable of holding 86 rounds. The typical loadout included a mix of armor-piercing PZ-3943 and high-explosive SPR-43 shells, with some variations that included limited numbers of PZGR-4043. The tank also carried up to 5,850 rounds of 7.92mm ammunition for its machine guns. For targeting, the Tiger II used the Turmzielfernrohr 9D and binocular gun sight until May 1944, after which the more advanced 9D monocular sight was introduced. This improved the accuracy and effectiveness of its main gun. The armor layout of the Tiger II was equally impressive, with different thicknesses depending on the location. The front lower hull was 3.9 inches thick at a 40-degree angle, while the upper front hull was 5.9 inches thick, also at a 40-degree slope. The lower sides had 3.1 inches of armor set at a 90-degree angle, and the upper sides were sloped at 65 degrees with the same thickness. The rear armor was 3.1 inches thick and sloped at 60 degrees. Top and bottom had thinner protection, with the front bottom at 1.6 inches and the rear bottom at just under an inch. The turret design varied between production models. The later production turret had a thick 7.1-inch front armor at an 80-degree slope, while the earlier Porsche turret featured rounded armor ranging between 2.4 and 3.9 inches thick. The sides of the production turret had 3.1 inches of armor sloped at 69 degrees, and the rear was also 3.1 inches thick at a 70-degree angle. Operational history. The Tiger II was primarily issued to Germany's heavy tank battalions, known as Schwere Panzerabteilungen, in both the regular army, Heer, and the Waffen-SS. Aside from being used for research, training, and a small 5-tank detachment with the Panzerlehr Division, Tiger II tanks were reserved for these specialized units. A typical battalion, or Abteilung, was made up of 45 Tiger II tanks. This structure was divided into the battalion command, which included 3 Tiger IIs and 3 company command, each with 2 Tiger IIs. Each company was further broken down into platoons, with each platoon fielding 4 Tiger II tanks. For example, in a standard battalion, battalion command fielded 3 Tiger II tanks. Each company command had 2 Tiger II tanks. Each platoon within a company had 4 Tiger II tanks, and there were 3 platoons per company. The Schwere Heerespanzerabteilung 513 was one of the units equipped with the Tiger II, and they famously appeared in Nazi wartime propaganda, showing off their narrower vehicle transport tracks. These tanks were filmed during training at Sennelager in Germany before being deployed to Hungary. Reliability and mobility. When it first entered service, the Tiger II faced significant reliability issues. Early models were plagued by leaking seals, weak gaskets, and a drivetrain that was originally designed for a lighter tank. These problems were compounded by new and untested final drive and steering component, which frequently failed in the field. The tank's double-radius steering gear and final drive were particularly prone to breakdown, making them a common source of frustration. The new double-link track system also had its share of problems. When the Tiger II operated on rough terrain, the tracks experienced sideways stress, causing uneven wear. Only every other sprocket tooth engaged with the track, leading to rapid wear and further stressing the final drive. Wolfgang Thomall, the Inspector General of the Panzer Troops, highlighted these issues in a briefing on November 4, 1944. He noted that the new tracks, while simplifying production, made the Tiger II more susceptible to mechanical failures. Henschel's chief designer, Erwin Aders, later admitted that these problems arose because the Tiger II went into production without thoroughly testing these components. Inexperienced crews only made things worse. Drivers, who had often received minimal training on other tanks, were quickly sent to the front without fully understanding how to operate the Tiger II properly. This lack of training became evident when the Schwere Heerespanzerabteilung 501 was sent to the Eastern Front. Out of 45 Tiger II tanks, only 8 were operational, with most suffering from final drive failures. The first 5 Tiger IIs delivered to the Panzer Lehr Division broke down before seeing combat and had to be destroyed to avoid capture. Despite these early issues, Henschel worked closely with the crews to resolve the problem. Modifications to seals, gaskets, the drivetrain, and the track and sprocket wheel designs helped improve reliability. Better training and more thorough maintenance practices also played a key role in keeping the Tiger II operational. By March 15, 1945, the Tiger II had a reliability rate of 59%, which was comparable to the 62% of Panzer IV and significantly better than the Panther, which had a rate of just 48%. One battalion, SHBZ BT 503, reported notable success in Hungary during October 1944. In 2 separate operations, the battalion's Tiger IIs destroyed 120 anti-tank guns, 19 other guns, and various enemy columns, covering a distance of 155 miles without serious mechanical failures. The Tiger II's armor proved especially effective, with some vehicles taking up to 20 hits without being knocked out. Despite its weight, the Tiger II was surprisingly agile. German records and test results from the time show that its mobility was on par with, if not better than, many other tanks in service at the time, both German and Allied. In 1945, Lieutenant Colin H.A. Shields of the 66th Armored Regiment observed that Royal Tigers were able to navigate soft ground with ease, and their tracks left less impact on the terrain than their Allied counterparts. Combat history. The Tiger II saw its first combat during the Battle of Normandy on July 18, 1944. The 1st Company of the 503rd Heavy Panzer Battalion faced the Canadian offensive known as Operation Atlantic, which took place between the towns of Troarn and Demouville. During this battle, 2 Tiger IIs were lost, and the company commander's tank became trapped in a bomb crater from the earlier Operation Goodwood, making it unrecoverable. On the Eastern Front, the Tiger II made its debut on August 12, 1944, during the 501st Heavy Panzer Battalion's resistance against the Soviet Lvov-Sandomierz offensive. The Tigers attacked the Soviet bridgehead near the Vistula River, but on the road to Oglandau, 3 Tiger IIs were destroyed in an ambush by a handful of Soviet T-34-85 tanks. The German tanks suffered ammunition explosions, which caused numerous crew fatalities. As a result, stowing main gun rounds in the turret was discontinued, reducing the tank's ammunition capacity to 68 rounds. Between August 11 and 14, up to 14 Tiger IIs were either destroyed or captured, mainly due to ambushes and flanking attacks by Soviet T-34-85s, IS-2 tanks, and ISU-122 assault guns in difficult, sandy terrain. The Soviets captured 3 operational Tiger IIs, allowing them to study the tank's capabilities and weaknesses at their Kubinka testing grounds. The Tiger II continued to play a key role on other fronts as well. On October 15, 1944, Tiger IIs from the 503rd Heavy Panzer Battalion participated in Operation Panzerfaust, assisting Otto Skorzény's forces in capturing the Hungarian capital, Budapest. Keep the country allied with Germany until the war's end. The 503rd Battalion then took part in the Battle of Debrecen and remained active in Hungary for 166 days. During this time, they destroyed at least 121 Soviet tanks, 244 anti-tank guns and artillery pieces, 5 aircraft, and even a train. However, the unit lost 25 Tiger IIs, 10 of which were knocked out by Soviet forces, while 13 were destroyed by their own crews to prevent capture. Tiger IIs were also heavily involved in the Ardennes offensive, or the Battle of the Bulge, in December 1944. Around 150 Tiger IIs participated in the offensive, representing nearly a third of the total production. Despite their formidable presence, many were lost during the course of the battle. In 1945, Tiger IIs continued to see action in key Soviet offensives, such as the Vistula-Oder offensive and the East Prussian offensive in January, the German Lake Balaton offensive in Hungary in March, and the battles at Seelow Heights and Berlin in April. The 103rd SS Heavy Panzer Battalion, which operated on the Eastern Front from January to April 1945, claimed an impressive 500 enemy kills. However, they lost 45 Tiger IIs during this period, most of which were abandoned and destroyed by their own crews due to mechanical failures or fuel shortages. Gun and armor performance. The Tiger II's combination of thick armor and a powerful long-range gun gave it a significant edge over both Western Allied and Soviet tanks, especially in head-on engagements. On the Western Front, this advantage was even more apparent, as neither the British nor American forces had introduced heavy tanks in large numbers until the M26 Pershing arrived in 1945, along with a limited number of M4A3E2 Sherman jumbo assault tanks with reinforced armor. Few late-model Churchill tanks also appeared after D-Day, but these were rare. A German report from the Waffenamt, WA-Proof 1, suggested that the Tiger II's frontal armor was nearly invulnerable to the Soviet 122mm D-25T, one of the most powerful tank guns of the war. However, Soviet tests revealed that the tank's front could be penetrated at the weld joints if 3 to 4 shots were fired from a distance of 500 to 600 yards. These tests also noted that the Tiger II's weld quality was inferior compared to the earlier Tiger I and Panther tank. In February 1945, a British Royal Armoured Corps report assessed the QF 17-pounder gun, known for its armor-piercing discarding sabot ammunition, as capable of penetrating the Tiger II's frontal turret and lower hull at around 1,100–1,200 yards. However, this was under ideal conditions, and in actual combat, Tiger II was never penetrated head-on by the 17-pounder. Despite its strong frontal armor, Tiger II's vulnerabilities lay in its thinner side and rear armor. Allied forces often used flanking maneuvers to engage these weaker areas, as direct frontal attacks were rarely effective. In most battles, this tactic was necessary to exploit the Tiger II's blind spot. As for the Tiger II's gun, it was able to destroy any Allied tank from the front at ranges well beyond 1.6 miles, far exceeding the effective range of most Allied tank guns. This made the Tiger II a formidable opponent in long-range engagements, further reinforcing its reputation as one of the most dangerous tanks of the war. Soviet wartime testing. In August 1944, 2 Tiger II tanks were captured by Soviet forces near Sandomierz and transported to the testing grounds at Kubinka. During the journey, both tanks experienced significant mechanical issues. Cooling systems struggled with the intense heat, causing the engines to overheat and the gearboxes to fail. One tank's right suspension had to be completely replaced, and even then, its full functionality couldn't be restored. The tank continued to break down every 6 to 9 miles during the transfer. When testing began, the 8.8cm KK-43 gun performed well, showing strong penetration and accuracy that matched the Soviet 122mm D-25T. In fact, during testing, it was capable of fully penetrating the turret of another Tiger II at a range of 400 yards. However, the armor on the tested tanks revealed some weaknesses. When fired upon with shells ranging from 100 to 152mm in caliber, the armor did not always penetrate. Spalling from the inside of the plates often damaged key components, like the transmission, rendering the tanks immobile. Soviet engineers noted that the welding quality was inferior compared to other German tanks, like the Tiger I and Panther, likely due to supply shortages. Testing showed that the armor plates lacked molybdenum, which had been replaced by vanadium, making the metal less flexible and more prone to cracking. Further expanded testing using 100mm and 122mm AP projectiles showed that the Tiger II's turret could be penetrated at ranges between 1,000 and 1,500 meters. However, these tests were conducted after removing the gun and mantlet, and most penetrations occurred near weak points, such as vision slits and the gun mount. In addition, the 100mm and 122mm guns were able to penetrate the weld joints on the tank's front hull after 3 to 4 shots at a distance of 500 to 600 meters. Surviving vehicles. The only working Tiger II can be found at the Musée de Blindés in Saumur, France. This particular tank features the production turret and is accessible to the public. It originally belonged to the First Company, 101st SS Heavy Panzer Battalion. Abandoned by its crew on August 23, 1944, near Mantes-la-Jolie due to engine problems, the tank was recovered by the French Army in September 1944. It was stored in a factory in Sattery before being transferred to the museum in 1975. Although it originally had turret number 123, Colonel Michel Aubry, the museum's founder, renumbered it as 233 to honor the Tiger II that destroyed his Sherman tank during the war. Unlike many other captured vehicles, this Tiger II was never used by the French Army. Several other Tiger IIs have also survived. The Tank Museum, Dorset, UK. This early production Tiger II prototype, built from soft steel, did not see active service. It is displayed as part of the museum's Tiger collection. Defense Academy of the United Kingdom, Shrivenham, UK. This Tiger II, featuring a production turret and hull number 280093, originally belonged to the 501st SS Panzer Battalion. It has turret number 104 and retains its Zimmerit coating. The tank was abandoned near Beauvais after its tracks and final drive were damaged, and it is now on display at the Tank Museum in Dorset. The Wheatcroft Collection, Leicestershire, UK. This ongoing restoration project aims to rebuild a complete, running Tiger II using parts from various vehicles. Kevin Wheatcroft, the private collector, has gathered 70 to 80% of the necessary original parts, including a complete front glacis plate, 8.8 cm KBK-43 gun, and portions of the hull and tracks. Deutsches Panzermuseum, Munster, Germany. This Tiger II, bearing hull number 280101, originally had turret number 121 and belonged to the 501st SS Panzer Battalion. It was restored with a different turret number for unknown reason. Mantes-la-Jolie, France. Buried under Regional Road 913 lies a largely intact but wrecked Tiger II. Parts of the turret were recovered during an exploratory excavation in 2001, though the full excavation halted due to financial issues. There are plans to fully restore this tank as part of a Vexin Battle Memorial. Kubinka Tank Museum, Russia. Captured during the Battle of Oglendo, this Tiger II, marked as turret number 02, is on display at the Kubinka Tank Museum. December 44 Museum, Le Glaise, Belgium. This Tiger II, built in October 1944 and marked with hull number 280273 and turret number 213, belonged to the 501st SS Panzer Battalion. It was abandoned on December 24, 1944, after Kampfgruppe Piper's advance was halted. It has been cosmetically restored with parts from a Panther gun barrel and retains its gearbox and engine. U.S. Army Armor and Cavalry Collection, Fort Moore, Georgia, United States. This Tiger II, hull number 280243 and turret number 332, was captured by Sergeant Glenn D. George during the Battle of the Bulge on December 24, 1944. After being used for educational purposes at the Aberdeen Proving Ground, it was displayed at the Patton Museum before being moved to Fort Moore. Schweizerisches Militärmuseum, Full, Switzerland. Previously displayed at the Thun Tank Museum, this Tiger II, hull number 280215, was gifted to Switzerland by France after the war. As of 2021, it is being restored to working order. And that wraps up our deep dive into the history, design, and legacy of the Tiger II tank. From its formidable firepower and armor to the challenges it faced in battle, the Tiger II remains one of the most iconic tanks of World War II. If you enjoyed this video and found it informative, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating content on military history. Your support helps us bring more in-depth stories and analysis, so make sure to turn on notifications to never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.